So here we are in the second part of Mel's podcast. We got to the bit in the story where Mark was not being realistic. And I think he's still not realistic.
Yeah.
So you were telling the story about him showing how independent he was. You particularly spoke about pocket money.
Mark started getting pocket money, I would say in the early part of his primary school years. And the reason for Mark having pocket money was, and holding on to his own money, was to create independence, but also to get him talking to people in the community. On Saturdays, that's the day they'd get their pocket money. Both him and his sister got £5 each, and Mark would choose what he wanted for tea. So, say like me and Cheryl would have a stir fry. Mark very often fancied a McDonald's or a chicken burger or something like that. He would have to go and order his own food and wait for the change. In addition to that, we used to live very close to Aldi, which other supermarkets are available. But he would walk round Aldi independently and he would buy his own shopping or whatever it is that he wanted. Sometimes he did go over his pocket money. The staff got to know Mark very, very well, and we did do choosing what was more important, which is what we sometimes still do.
Excellent. I mean, he also developed relationships when I got to know him with staff in Aldi.
Oh, yes. You saw Mark on Valentine's Day, and there was a particular young lady that he quite liked in there, and he would buy flowers and chocolates with his own money and tell the lady very often how beautiful she is and how much he likes her. And that's what he did. But I saw it much earlier than that. When Mark started music and movement, there was a young girl, similar age to Mark, who he liked. Didn't have a concept, I don't think, of relationships at the time. It was more about good friendships. And he bought her some flowers, and he asked her mum if he could buy her a drink of milk. So he does like the ladies.
And has been chasing after them for years. Yes. I know that on Valentine's Day I was in the shop with him, and this is when he was much older, and he presented her with a bouquet of flowers, the woman he fancied. And sort of I was way down the other end of the shop, forbidden to go anywhere near, and all sorts of customers were going, oh!
Yes, he is quite a Mills and Boon.
So he left school before he needed to?
No, he didn't.
No?
No. When Mark left school, during that time it was still legal for Mark to leave school at 16. Now, both my son and my daughter have had that choice. And it's whether Mark, being autistic or not, is still a choice. And it's a life choice. And I think that's important for anybody. If you're wanting to go on to further education, that needs to be your choice and have an idea of where you want to go. And I would support Mark if that's what he wanted to do. Mark decided to leave. And he thought he would, I remember the first day when he was supposed to have gone back to school. But actually he realised he wasn't. And he lay in bed and he goes, this is the life. I remember it as clear as anything. I thought, you think you've got it easy? You haven't. You've still got to learn, but it's going to be a different kind of learning. And I have been so lucky because we had Mel and Mick down the road, local hairdresser, who was absolutely fantastic. We had the taxi driver, and all these people supported Mark when they could, which was absolutely fabulous. He also went to a music school, and which was, again, the teachers in there were brilliant. But unfortunately, he had to stop because Derby couldn't fund it. It was too expensive. So they said Mark could pay for it. It was kind of expensive. So we had to look at other things, which he did. We went to the local fire service. He did a presentation on the history of chocolate at Cadbury World. Marcus took me on so many adventures and taught me such a lot. You know, and all of it is his choice, his choosing, not mine.
So the road could get at times bumpy.
Oh, really?
I remember when I came into your life, I sat beside him on the settee, and he basically told me where to go.
Oh, yeah.
In so many words. But at the time, you were also dealing with the whole question of him being epileptic, and he had a baby monitor.
Yeah, Mark got epilepsy when he was 13, and it was Christmas time, and he was downstairs. I was doing my dissertation, and I don't know what it was. I got this feeling something wasn't right. So I went downstairs, and Mark was in a full tonic-clonic fit. I was absolutely bricking myself. I don't know whether I should say that, but I was so scared. It was awful. So naturally I called 999. The ambulance came out, and I insisted that he goes to the hospital. I needed to make sure that it was all right. And the doctor, you know, spoke to us and said, yeah, he's got epilepsy. We're putting him on this medication. No, he didn't put him on the medication straight away. He said, we need to do an ECG. And he had so many fits during that ECG. Oh, unreal. Not that I could see. It was more absences and all that kind of stuff. Mm. And it scarred me. So when Mark was at home, and I don't know why, but at night time, and yes, the school said, get a baby monitor, you'll hear it. You know, you'll hear if he's having seizures or anything like that. So I got one, and I can honestly say, I listened out. It made me listen out for every move, and it was awful. There's no other word for it. And he started to, you know, whether it was because the stresses of what was going on with uni, and at the time my relationship with my ex-boyfriend wasn't particularly great. He was having like a fit a month, and it were always at night, never in the daytime, but always at night. And it's like I couldn't do anything. I could not move because I was always listening out.
You spent the night listening out.
Yeah.
So he went to visit his sister, who was living at the time in Oxfordshire. And she didn't use the baby monitor.
No, she didn't.
Gave you a hard time for using it.
Yeah.
So you were seen as being very protective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was very, very protective. And then after a bit, once I finished uni and everything calmed down, the fits got less. And things slowly got back to normal. And, you know, he was doing things that he always wanted to do, and I slowly started to relax again. And I thought, oh, you know, okay, the meds are working, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and I don't have to worry anymore.
But yet this time also we're thinking, he's not going to live at home forever and ever and ever and ever.
No.
And the phrase you used was, he'd sort of outgrown living at home.
He did. Mark I wouldn't say, because I mean, people so use the phrase challenging behaviour so, easily. It wasn't challenging behaviour. It was behaviours that challenged me. And Tony from Ascend Learning uses that phrase, and I've got to agree with it. And I've done so many adventures, been to so many places. He's written to so many celebrities and had replies back and everything like that. All of what he's wanted to do and choices and everything like that. He needed another face. He didn't, at the time, he didn't need me. He wanted to move on, which is fine. People do move on, don't they?
So eventually he left home and he moved into a care setting of some sort.
He did, yeah. At the time, I thought it was a fabulous idea. I welcomed it. Everything seemed to be working really, really well.
And in fact, it was some sort of institution for a time.
It was.
In Derby City, actually quite near where he lives at the moment.
Pretty much, yeah.
After a time, he then he spoke about
moving in with these two carers.
His way of describing it was he wanted to move in with a family that had a dog.
Yeah.
So eventually at a meeting it was decided he would move in there.
Yeah.
And they described themselves as fostering him.
I don't know what. They said that it was easy to say that to their friends. He was never ever fostered. He's got a family. He was never fostered.
But his sister would say that sort of betrays a hidden agenda, what they really wanted.
They wanted a family of their own. And Mark was never ever part of their family. They tried, don't get me wrong, the last, year that he was with them, for us, it was awful. They took the photo outside of the sex shop, picturing Mark, educating the lads in Benidorm and putting that up on social media.
Which you objected to because?
Because they're not qualified to educate Mark in sex, and not only that, he was standing outside looking like a little boy. Mark's not a little boy. He's a 23-year-old young man. He's quite capable in relationships, and has done for many years, and has built up his own friendships.
So he eventually got to the stage where you saw very little of him for about the last year he was there.
Yeah, it was awful. Absolutely. We've always had a close relationship. Always. We would have coffee and toast and lie on top of my bed, which was a bit like Julie Andrews' scenario, if you want to call it that. So to go and miss out on Mother's Day, Christmas, birthdays was quite painful.
And eventually he exploded.
Well, apparently he exploded, but I'm not too sure. I mean, yes, he's exploded at, if you want to call it exploded, he's exploded at me in the past because I wasn't fit for purpose. But I think there was more to it. Mark would not explode at someone without reason. He wouldn't do that. And I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I can understand him doing that to me because being the only person in his life for 18 years, it must have been quite boring at the end, you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, I can do what I want, we can go on adventures, but, I need someone else to go on adventures. So, him exploding, but he's also starting to tell me things, or tell us things, about one of the carers ripping his T-shirt, but then ripping their own. So
But Mark has a language difficulty, so
He does.
sometimes it's quite difficult to figure
For
out
what he's saying.
exactly what he's saying.
Absolutely.
So this was within, actually it's almost exactly a year ago that he left them.
Yeah.
He still rants about it.
Oh, yeah. But, George, the local authority didn't listen to us. It took another carer of the similar organisation to actually say and get the police involved.
He moved in with an emergency carer.
And she brought in the police, and that's when she got in touch with us and said, you need to go and spend time with your mum.
So he lived there for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And then he moved on to where he lives at the moment.
Yeah.
And by sheer coincidence, today he is seeing a counsellor for the first time.
Well, he saw one in Derby, but he developed an infatuation with her.
He had a crush on her.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the other thing. He spends a lot of time talking to himself out loud.
Yeah.
So often you can tell what's bugging him. He talks out loud about the ex-carers and the incident which resulted in him leaving. And he also talks about the therapist that he had a crush on. So today he wants to get these things, quote unquote, out of his head.
Yes.
So with a bit of luck, that process starts today.
Yeah. But on the other side of it, George, he is making progress as well. He comes here, it works out about 4 days.
It's about half the week.
Half the week here, half the week in Derby. And he's going to Donut Studios.
What's Donut Studios?
Donut Studios is a place whereby he plays electric guitar, and he can also do IT and art, which he absolutely seems to love, doesn't he? He always comes out smiling with a great big cheesy grin on his face. And he, like you say, is seeing a counsellor later. So he's slowly building back up again.
He's been talking about artwork for months and months and months. The first thing he wanted to do was Call the Midwife meets Captain America. John Cena.
That's it. And he's done a picture, hasn't he?
So there's sort of quite unlikely associations that he draws. What's the latest one that he was doing? Wonder Woman meets the Teletubbies. I pointed out that Wonder Woman probably doesn't have a clue who the Teletubbies are. They're in a different country.
In addition to that, he's also been to cosplay. He hasn't been to any just yet this year. The last one he went to was at Matlock, and he was high-fiving, he was getting into the role. He was doing really well at it.
Sorry, for anybody who doesn't know what cosplay is.
Mark dresses up as Captain America, and he really does play the hero really quite well, doesn't he? When
he left the two carers, the emergency carer that he moved into, first thing she did was to make him a Captain America costume. He'd been told, yes, but all this dressing up is for children, really.
Yeah.
The cosplay community
welcomed him.
Were very welcoming, and that's adults. When you say that to them about it's for children, really, they say, would you look around the room? I don't see many children here. They're lawyers, solicitors and plumbers.
Yeah.
Who like playing other roles.
Yeah.
So he scrubs up quite well as Captain America.
And he's slowly bought his own costume.
Yep.
That is more lifelike, really.
What else does he like doing?
The electric guitar.
And watching television.
Yes.
It's not he sits in the middle of the city, owning the whole place. He watches the same program over and over.
But George, there's also a fabulous band that he does like to follow.
Yep.
And he's even bought a waistcoat. Is it a It's like
It's a leather waistcoat, yeah?
Yeah, it's exactly like
One of the band.
one of the band from After Hours. But I think he kind of likes all of them because he's bought a guitar now and he's actually using his money, I think, quite well. You know, he's bought a guitar. His classes, they're not that much. And who knows where it might lead.
Right.
Hopefully a life of choice and control.
Where he chooses
Oh, yes.
what he's doing. He wants a job. No, he doesn't. We tried to do that one about... Somebody suggested you could have a job in a warehouse in Alfreton. And he riles at that for an idea. No, I don't want a job at a warehouse in Alfreton.
But he also riles at when you turn around and say, do you want to be realistic? He'll turn around and tell you exactly where to go now. And that is as it should be. Personalisation, choice.
Excellent.
Thank you.